everyone, I'm Helene and this is Bambi and Maz just a bit off camera there, and welcome to my talk about living with disabled dogs. Sorry we're a few minutes late, a few technical issues, trying to set the camera up right to feature both the dogs in. So a little bit about me. I am an A&E doctor. I work at a major trauma centre. I've always absolutely loved animals since I was little and have 6 dogs, 3 disabled dogs, who is Maz, who's 2-legged, Bambi, who's a paraplegic. I also have a blind dog called Inka. Inka won't be featuring. Due to her being blind, she tends to moon at the camera mostly. And I've got 3 completely able-bodied springers. Most of my life is set up around doing with dogs really. I cani-cross, I'm a canine massage therapist as well. I do, and I'm more aromatherapy specialist as well, and worked as a dog trainer when I was at medical school. So pretty much my whole life's animals. So just to tell you a little bit about these guys, first of all, and then I'll tell you a bit more about life. So Maz, who is coming off camera a little bit here, he is an amazing 2-legged dog. He is from Afghanistan and he was found on the streets with 2 very badly damaged legs and a smashed pelvis, but he'd been managing like that for about 2 years with his legs all fused out in front of him. A vet contacted my friend Louise, who now runs the charity War Paws. She was working out in Afghanistan at the time, saying could she help? And so she was like, yeah, no problem, and took him in. And, having looked at him and decided what was the best thing to do, it was amputation really of the legs. There wasn't any leg that was possible to have prosthetics attached to it. And obviously the injuries were so severe and long-standing that, there wasn't really anything salvageable. And he was really mobile despite this sort of disability. So had his legs amputated, and then he flew over via Dubai to come and live with me in Manchester, where he hates the rain. And he's been over here 6 years now. It's nearly 6 years, and he's just an absolute character. He's an absolute amazing dog, who, despite being a feral dog, is quite happy with my cat and my bunny, and one of my bunnies used to actually sleep with him on a bed at night. This is little Bambi. He's just the Bams he's got as you can see, his little legs, which I call his little Kenny Everett legs, because sometimes he does it's all in the best possible taste. He's a paraplegic. He was found as a puppy on the streets of Romania. Someone literally saw him sort of dragging himself around, scavenging for food, and just sent a photo to the charity Broken Biscuits, who rallied troops around the local area to go out and search for this little pupster. Got taken into a beautiful foster sort of shelter place that was actually in Bosnia, called Happy Tales, halfway home. And it was found that he'd got a broken back. He's paraplegic, so he actually scoots around on his legs, but also uses wheels when we're out. He's just you're a real little star, aren't you? He's been here about 2.5 years. And I also have my blind dog Inka. I'm not really going to talk about blind dogs too much, because it's a subject on its own. It's really going to be about mobility, but different things with her will feature. She was found in a river in Romania as a 2-week-old pup with her head on a piece of wood trying to stay afloat. Got taken into foster by the mayor's wife, who looked after her very, very well. And then she came over to me at 5 months of age, and she's been with me ever since. We may also be joined at some point by my bunny Doris or Holly the cat. And hopefully the rest of the dogs that are downstairs won't bark. So when I was planning this talk out, I was wondering how best to sort of really talk about all the stuff that I wanted to say. And then I realised that my old dog Toffee, who's no longer with us, actually had everything that I wanted to talk about pretty much covered with if I talk about Toffee. So let's try and get more in there. So I'm going to sort of talk about really Toffee and her timeline and her disability, because she went from being a puppy. Hey Danielle, nice to see you. She went from being a puppy to a disabled dog, to full recovery, to disabled dog, then an elderly disabled dog, and there were all the sort of the things going on as well through that time. And so I'm going to talk to you about that. And my whole thing with my disabled dogs is about being inclusive. Everything to do with them, it's all about making sure I've got 6 dogs, everyone has a good time, we go on walks together, we go camping together, everything's about doing as much as I can to make sure these guys are included. And I compete sort of around the country when we're not in lockdown at Canicross, and the dogs play a full role. Inka canicrosses, but I mean, these guys, these are my 2 presentations, so it's actually a bit of a joke at one competition that we, you know, whenever I used to get a medal, which fortunately was every time, because Maz would have been so disappointed, he actually ran up to the presentations when I was getting my medal, and so the medal was given to him. And now any time there's a medal, he loves a bit of bling, he's there. And so it's just, I always try to feature them as much as I can and make sure that they can join in, and that's pretty much sort of governs everything I do with my dogs in some way, shape or form. So Toffee was a wonderful dog who was a puppy. I got her when she was 12 weeks old from a rescue, German Shepherd cross, as it turned out, a common dog. She looked quite German Shepherdy. And when she was just 2 weeks before her first birthday, she was being walked by some friends because my other dog Treacle was in season. She got hit by a car and she broke her back, L2 spinous process, and was actually paralysed. So she had surgery to fuse the back, and then it was kind of a waiting game. And she was just a really chilled puppy. So she did really, really well. The people who had been walking her at the time, the wife was a physio. So we actually did it in shifts with taking her out for wees and having her in a harness. And, you know, and I didn't really know anything about what to do. I've had dogs all my life. And as it happened, I'd had an elderly dog whose back legs had gone. So I'd learned a lot about sort of putting rugs down and making a harness out of her back for a back end to lift it up. And my mum had actually a dachshund that had a back problem. We'd gone to a physio for him, but this is like years ago. This is before Facebook, this is before the internet, you know. And when Toffee had her accident, it was before Facebook, and so I didn't really, you know anything, but I just had this instinctive idea of things that she needed. And working with my friend who was a physio, and there was a centre that just opened up with hydrotherapy as well. And I remember about a month after the accident, she just started to stand and weight bear in her harness, and, you know, that was holding her up to sort of get her out in the garden. I was like, oh my goodness, she's weight bearing, you know, it might be okay. And literally a few days after that, I was cooking and I suddenly heard this sort of noise of claws on the floor, and I turned around and a very, very wobbly Toffee, very shaky, had come into the kitchen to sniff out the food, which was just, you know, typical of Toffee. This is what she did. She loved her food, and it was just the most amazing thing. And I thought, oh my goodness, you know, this is the start. She's going to be okay. And she did brilliantly. I mean, she really did. She loved doing agility, and she actually went back to doing agility within 6 months. And we didn't do it seriously. It was just more fun. But I remember she always used to, as a puppy, love going on the A-frame and standing at the top of the A-frame and just looking out, you know, very regal, looking out to her subjects. And 6 months after, we'd gone back to doing agility, and she got up the A-frame, and it was just like, there was me and the instructor there just, you know, checking, but she was just having so much fun. And this is sort of, she really governed how I view dogs with sort of different needs, and just wanting to make sure that they have as much fun as well. And you know, her sister was going to agility still, so why couldn't she? And I think you're only limited by your imagination, and I really feel that, you know, there's things that I want to do, and it's like, well, I want to take my dogs, because otherwise what's the point in having them? So how can I facilitate this? And it was actually, we went to Glastonbury. I did a competition near Glastonbury a few years ago, and Toffee had just got fitted with her wheels, so I sort of jumped ahead a bit, but I decided I'd never been up Glastonbury Tour, and I wanted to go up there, and I was like, how do I do it? So I checked out the best route. My friend Keith was there as well, and so I loved Mazzy's stroller up the top of Glastonbury Tour, walking backwards. If you've ever been up there, there's loads of steps, and then he helped with Toffee's wheels, and we got to the top, you know, and everyone was like, thought we were just a couple of nutters, but got to the top with 5 dogs, and then I got Maz out of his stroller, and he just loves running down hills, and Toffee loves running down hills, so it was a really easy, it took us an hour and a half to get up there and like 20 minutes to get down or something, but you know, it was just so much fun, and the memory from doing that is just absolutely awesome. So Toffee made a really good recovery, but she did have a little bit of a limp. It didn't really affect her in anything that she did. It was that's just how she was. It had a limp. So it was noticeable to people, but not, you know, it didn't affect her, like I said, doing anything. She was allowed to do anything. And so we started doing flyball. Sister Treacle did flyball, so I wanted her to be able to join in. And Toffee wasn't a dog with a high drive. She wasn't a natural sports dog. She'd do it because if she felt like it, if you paid her enough. But it was really, I just wanted her to be able to have fun. So she just did what she wanted to do. She did flyball really, really well when she wanted to. And we joined a team, and we moved from one team to another. And when I joined, I said, you know, I want to really be able to compete with my dog Toffee. She does have this limp, as long as that's okay. It's not affecting her in any way, shape or form. This is just, you know, how she is. And the trainer was like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. And we were coming up to, we were going to be doing a demo at a local game fair, and I was really excited about it. You know, oh my goodness, we're going to be in this demo. You know, it's going to be really exciting, showing my 2 dogs doing flyball. So excited. And I got a phone call from the trainer saying, oh, Helen, I'm sorry, but Toffee won't be able to be in the demo because, you know, I think she's a bad advert for flyball, to be honest. And I was like, excuse me? And I was really upset about it because I just was like, you know, she wasn't the fastest dog, but she did it really well. And I feel that, you know, it shouldn't always be about the fastest dogs. It should be about dogs having fun. You know, and so I literally left and set up my own flyball team so that she could take part, and she did it beautifully. I mean, we actually, when we did the British Championships, we only did them 1 year, but it got to 5 legs. I had to pull out a border collie that was obviously a lot faster but kept faulting, and so it was all hinging on Toffee. And it was like, oh my goodness, got to put Toffee in, because it was raining as well. And Toffee, like I said, would do flyball really well, but sometimes she'd be like, oh, maybe I'll just rest here, or oh, someone's eating an ice cream, I'll have a sniff, and literally sent her down the run and turned back with this pretend running to get her to chase me. And I remember calling to my friend, has she done it, has she done it? And Carol said, yeah, she's done it, oh my goodness, she's done it, and got us the rosette. And so it was like hugely, you know, and that's the thing is, you know, I think it's really, I hate people writing disabled dogs off, and I really hope that people can start to see beyond the physical things that they see, beyond the bits that are missing or the broken bits, and I know, and just see that, you know, how amazing they are. So Toffee, after a couple of years, she was actually, because she'd gone back to agility and things like that, she was actually a finalist in the James Well-Beloved Tales of Achievement Award, and it was the sort of the precursor to their involvement with Scruffs. And I remember being interviewed by Peter Purvis up on stage, and he was absolutely lovely, and he asked me something, and he said, did it ever occur to you to have Toffee put to sleep when she had her accident? And I can honestly say that was the first time it ever occurred to me, that, you know, and I hadn't even considered euthanasia. There was just this complete and utter belief that I didn't really know exactly how I'd be able to help her, but I just knew that I'd be able to. And it sort of governed pretty much everything I do. And I knew I had the physical capability to be able to help her, and I knew that I'd find the knowledge. And I knew that she was a dog also that would manage because of her personality. Thank you, Danielle. Yeah, you know, and I think this is the thing, and it's so important that people see that dogs can do things. And in actual fact, Nicola Collinson, who's from Scent Dog, she very kindly shared a video I did of Bambi doing some scent work. You know, sort of he scoots along and doing indicating in a cone. And you know, I've been doing a scent work course. I'm nearly an instructor, and I just keep procrastinating about the exam. But all my dogs learn the same stuff. You know, some have different abilities, and it's got nothing to do, a lot of the time it's got nothing to do with their mobility. I mean, Maz isn't going to do a car search necessarily. He might do one in my van on one level, but you know, there's no reason they can't do stuff. So Toffee, sort of after her accident as well, I didn't mention that she had hydro. One of the things I said, she had hydro, and hydro is really great for the disabled dogs as well, and it's good for them to be able to do something that's kind of non-weight bearing. So these two do hydro. Bambi's very, very good at it. He doesn't necessarily like it, but I think it's very useful for them to be able to do stuff and work on their front legs as well, and also from a safety aspect, because Maz actually one time went wandering down by a lake where it was a lake we knew as well, so I don't know what possessed him, but there was loads of leaves on the surface, and he put his foot on them thinking it was a hard surface, and it wasn't, and it was quite deep, but fortunately he'd been swimming, because the first time he ever went in water he panicked, but because he'd been swimming before this happened, I was about 3 meters away, and I covered like 3 meters in like no time at all, just got his harness and just lifted him out with one hand. But he did really well. So it's really useful if you can find a hydrotherapist. And we do occasionally have the odd Code Brown incident, as we like to call it. But, you know, the hydro lady, Emma, she fits us in the last booking in the day. So, you know, if there is a poo incident, it's, you know, it's just scooped out, the pool's cleaned anyway after us, so it's all fine. So it's just finding someone who's approachable and is, you know, amenable to do that, and just booking in last, really. But it's really good for them. And Inka goes swimming as well, so, you know, all the dogs go swimming, and it's nice for them to have a go as well. So as Toffee's sort of progressed throughout her later years, she started to develop a bit of a limp, and her legs started to, one of her right hind, which was the one with the limp, had started to knuckle. So she was losing a bit of proprioception, and her paw was turning over. And I see this quite a lot in dogs going through. And it's funny because there was a post on a page the other day about it, and a lot of bad advice is given, but I had Toffee in these paws boots. These are the ones search and rescue dogs wear, but these are the ones with the gaiter. They're quite solid. This is a bit of an old one, actually. It's the only one I've got. The rest of them, the only one I can find. But what it means is that instead of knuckling and dragging her paws and hurting herself and potentially getting wounds, you've got this is protective. And if you, the gaiter's on, so it keeps it nice on the leg, and then you can wrap it round so you get it very sturdy. Now, what often people recommend is these rubber boots from Paws, which are brilliant for covering up wounds, and they're brilliant if you're cani-crossing or something on rough surface, but they're no good for knuckling, because they are just going to wear that through and they're going to get hurt. So really important if your dog's doing that is actually to cover the paw up. And I remember speaking to someone a while ago whose dog was doing that, and the dog was on wheels, and I suggested boots, and she said she'd been told by a vet not to, because it would discourage the dog from picking the leg up. But the dog's already doing that, so it's not making any difference. And what I actually found is when I put the boot on Toffee, and I don't know if it's the extra weight or it just triggered some proprioception in her, but she started to lift the leg up more. So it actually worked as a sort of a strength and conditioning aid as well. So it was really, you know, it was really useful. And the other thing, you know, I did with her as well is, again, it's planning walks. So we still went on walks, but I'd walk her through. She actually hated hydro, so I didn't actually go back with her after her initial session. But I'd walk through, one of the places we walked was by a river, but there was a nice bit of beach where you'd actually be walking through water. So I'd walk her through water, which she loved, because she loved going in water, just paddling, and then up and down little hills. And we like quite woodland walks, so there's lots of natural obstacles there, like, you know, tree trunks and branches for her to pick her paws up. So it's a really good way to just do ad hoc sort of exercises as you're going around your walk, or finding a tree stump to get the paws on, you know, front paws on, and build a little bit of strength that way as well. So it just, you know, loads of different options. As she got sort of older as well, she was starting to get a bit weaker in her legs, and it was about that time that actually I saw Maz, and so I adopted him, and I knew he was coming over. So, you're right, mate. So I wanted to get a stroller for him, because I didn't think he'd be able to. I actually did him injustice. I didn't think he'd be able to manage all the walks that we went on, but he actually did. And the stroller was really there for you know, extra help if he did get tired, or because he you're leaving us now, Maz. You're gonna leave. Just in fact, let's go. For extra walks if he did get tired, and also when he decides to get. Oh no, he's gonna stay. He's gonna stay. For when he does get tired, or he, or to be quite honest, because he is a feral dog, he decides to just literally make a break for freedom. So he has a bell on his harness, and I have a Rog harness that's got a handle on the back, because I find that really useful, because he does have this habit of going in a bush and then you're trying to get him out, or going down riverbanks. That's another favourite of yours, isn't it? Just going down riverbanks, which is impossible, because I walk my blind dog. She's on a waist belt with me, so she's at the side of me, and so he'll go down a riverbank that's always steep. It's because he loves going downhill. And then I'm like, okay, so I've got a blind dog who wants to get in the river, who's going to pull me down this hill, and then I've got to try and get him back up. So it's always an adventure. And you call one of the springers to come and assist you, and they're like, yeah, no, you can manage one, don't worry about it. you want to go and have a lie down? So I was looking for a stroller for him, and it's really important when you're going to get a stroller to actually, I know it sounds a bit stupid, but decide what you actually want the stroller to do, because they're made for lots of different surfaces. So I wanted a stroller that would be all terrain. I wanted a stroller that would be able to allow us to do these woodland walks, that would be able to allow us to go up and down sand dunes, because we do, to go to the beach. I wanted a stroller that if I had to go up and down steps, it was all right. I'm not very big, I only weigh 44 kilos, so I needed a stroller that was actually easy for me to manage and could fold up and go in my vehicle. So I have one that's very like a pushchair that's all terrain with 3 wheels. I'm going to do a separate video about this, and I'll post the link when I do it, but in here. So I wanted a stroller that could allow me to do all that, because these are all the things we do as a, you know, as a family group, me and my dogs. And actually when I had a blind cat as well, when we were away, my blind cat would come out as well in the pushchair with Maz and Bambi as well. So initially I got a Pet Gear stroller, which is from the States, which is an all-terrain stroller, but now I've bought, they changed the design slightly, so I bought one called Inner Pet, which they do an amazing range of strollers to sort all your needs. So I've got the Inner Pet Adventurer, but they do 3 different types of all-terrain. One of them, can't remember which one it is, has air tyres. So air tyres, to be honest, I don't think are worth getting, because I don't want to have a puncture. I don't want to be alone up the top of a sand dune or in the woods with a puncture, because no matter what they say that they're puncture proof, I've got a bike with Kevlar tyres, and I can tell you what, my inner tube still gets a puncture at 3 a.m. in the morning when I'm cycling home from work. So I like the ones with the foam. So it's really important to have a look at what tyres you've got as well, because the foam tyres, you know, they're just really sturdy. I never have a problem with the tyres. And also how manoeuvrable. So the 3 wheelers are going to be much better, but mine's like a proper stroller, because you've probably seen those strollers that are lower to the ground. The problem with them is, obviously it does depend on the size of your dog, but they're not as manoeuvrable. You're not going to be able to get them up and down steps. You're not going to, so if you just want a little walk around the park, that's fine, but they're not as easy to fold up either. So it's just looking to what you want from a stroller, and also wipe clean. You do want one that's specifically a dog one, and it's worth paying the money, because there's a lot of dog ones that are really only suited to have a little chihuahua in, because they're not sturdy enough. So my Maz weighs 16 kilos, Bambi weighs 10. And so they go in the stroller together, but I also used to put Toffee in it. So sometimes when Toffee used to get tired and Maz was walking, so Toffee would then go in the stroller, and then Maz would walk, and then I'd swap them around. So it worked out quite well, and she'd just sit there like Queen of Sheba. You could imagine her waving. If you want to put a character on a dog, if anyone's a Downton Abbey fan, the Dowager Duchess of Downton Abbey, that is very like how Toffee was. She towards the latter part, well, always really. She was very regal as she got older, very, very regal. It's a German Shepherd in her. So yeah, a stroller is absolutely amazing, and it just means that, you know, I can go for further walks, and it means that the dogs can come, and if they're going to get tired, I haven't got to worry. It's also really useful for putting in stuff. You don't need to carry a water pack. I recommend everyone get a stroller, whether you need it or not, because you can put water in it, you can put your poo bags in it, you have your little dicky bag on the side with your poo bags, you've got your food, your snack, your coffee, you've got a little holder for coffee, or in my case, you know, the odd tennis ball if we're going to somewhere with some water, so they can have a bit of a play. You know, it's just basically got everything. So really, really good thing to have. So we had that for a while, which was perfect. But then obviously as Toffee was getting older, she was about 12, 13 at this time. She was getting a lot weaker, and we weren't able to walk as far. So I choose the venues, but not walk as far. We choose to a bit where I could let her lay down. The springers could spring, everyone could mooch, she'd have a bit of a rest, and then we'd walk back. So we still went to a lot of the same venues, but just we didn't perhaps walk as far. And again, there's all these things. You don't have to limit yourself. You can still go to places, but just sometimes you have to have a stop in the middle, so that she could, she could rest and then regain her strength. But it was the time to start looking for wheels. So a friend of mine is a physio, so we used to go to physio. She used to have her physio sessions, and I actually, before I did medicine, I've got 2 engineering degrees, so I ended up buying 2 second-hand strollers, and we literally me and Andrea spent a whole afternoon dismantling these wheels and putting them back together to exactly suit Toffee. I don't recommend that unless you really know what you're doing. So this is actually Bambi's set of wheels. It's a modular one. It's by Wilking Wheels. The distributor in the UK is Wheels for Dogs. But the great thing about these wheels is it is completely modular. So when you get things that are broken through wear and tear, you just take it off and replace it. So you haven't got to replace the whole stroller. So the one I did for Toffee was pretty much the same thing. You've got a front strap that Bambi's goes through there. That goes over his body, over his head, and then it clips in there. I wonder if I might show you actually. Shall we go on your wheels? So hopefully we'll be able to show. So he basically sits in his wheels like this. Okay, and it is really easy to do. And I mean, Toffee was about 28 kilograms, and I'm trying to do this. And I, you know, it's just a lot of the time. It's just, you can put your head in. It's just technique. Trying to do it with one hand. And then this clips on. Oh. And that clips on there. I don't know if you can see. I'm making a bit of a pig's ear of it. And then he's got a strap that goes under the he's got a strap that goes under the waist as well, which clips around here. Take him out. And sorry mate. You're right, get your head out. That's it. Okay, like that. And then you've got that sits across his tummy there. And this is all washable as well. It's really good. And then you've got obviously stirrups for him. Now, Toffee initially didn't have stirrups. I just wanted her to be able to walk. So she was using it really as a support mechanism. And it meant that we could still go on all our walks. So she still had a boot on. And then as time progressed, she had boots on both paws. And then she'd start to get some splay. And so my friend Andrew's a physio. We would actually vet wrap her legs. So it sounds barbaric, but what it was actually doing was it's to prevent her splaying out and to still mean that we were trying to get her to use her legs as much as possible. And then I put stirrups on, and so she could, you know, after a period of time, I'd stirrup her during a walk, but it was trying to make sure that I was trying to maintain as much mobility as I could. And it was really, really excellent actually. And what had happened, because initially she was sort of slumping more to the side, she had a real banana back. She was getting a real banana back, but after literally only a few weeks in the wheels, she started to straighten up. And when I look back on videos, I can see the curvature in her back. And then when I look on videos a few weeks later, she's much straighter, even without, you know, just normally without the wheels. So it made a massive difference. And I wasn't sure, because she was 13, and I wasn't sure if she'd take to wheels, because Maz, we tried with wheels for 5 months with him. He hated them. That's why he doesn't have wheels. He absolutely hated them. He wouldn't move in them. If you look at any videos of him with his wheels on, he just looked really forlorn. Absolutely hated them, just wouldn't use them. So I was like, oh gosh, you know. So when we put the wheels on, I remember we took her outside, put these wheels on, and Maz was there as well. And he's laying down. And he literally was looking with one eye every so often about the wheels. And I was like, you know, he's looking, he thinks they're for him. And it was literally, you could see the huge relief in him when he realised the wheels were going on Toffee. And we literally got her on the grass, and she was like, oh, you know, she was off. And it was just like, oh, you know, I didn't have to worry. She was definitely wanting the wheels, and it made a massive difference because it just gave her a little bit of extra freedom. And like I said, it also sorted out a lot of mobility issues. It straightened up her spine, and it just meant that she could play a more active role that she still wanted to do. The thing is as well, I think it's really important to just note that wheels can freak other dogs out. So I remember, and horses as well, I remember a horse coming up behind us, and I pulled all my dogs over, but the horse wouldn't actually walk by, and it was the wheels. And occasionally with dogs, it doesn't happen very often, but it's enough for me to say you've just got to be a bit vigilant, I think, if you've got a dog on wheels, because it can freak some dogs out. So you just want to be, you know, be a bit careful. The other thing is that as she got older, so that Christmas, so what then happened, because as your dog gets older, you will have to make certain adjustments. Now, Bambi is paraplegic. He has his stirrups. He's still got quite a lot of strength in his back end. But Christmas Eve, literally went to put Toffee out for her bedtime wee. And she couldn't stand up. I used to lift her off her bed. She couldn't stand up, and her eyes were just, and I was like, oh my God, she's had a stroke. And literally just emergency vets, who I'm really lucky, my vet's is 24 hours. Christmas Eve, I remember just driving around there. It's like it's literally 5 minutes away, and I'm just like, oh please no. So I get a bit tearful. But anyway, we got her home, had some medication to help her stop feeling sick, but literally for a week or more, she just could not weight bear. She could not stand up. And I was just thinking, she's just going to lose muscle mass, because in the 10 years between her accident and the point at which her legs started to deteriorate, she'd built up loads and loads of muscle. And it's amazing how quickly you lose muscle mass when your dog's not using it. And she literally, I was just like, if I don't get her out of bed soon and get her mobilizing, she is just not going to be able to, she's just not going to manage. And the wheels, she didn't have enough support in the wheels. So I literally, New Year's Eve, I spent with some neoprene. I got more of those clip fasteners, these little clips. And I made basically a rear leg harness that I'd step her in and then lift her up, and then she'd be strapped into the wheels with clips. So it held her pelvis up, and it was really secure. So it meant that even if she felt like she was collapsing, she was being held up, and then I could stir up her legs. And I remember putting her out in the garden, having made this all, and New Year's Day going, right, okay, let's try. And it was just, she started to walk, and I was like, oh my goodness, because, she'd just lost, in that week of being poorly, she just lost so much strength. And she started to do really well. And she actually lived for another year. She actually passed away Christmas Eve the following year, and just did absolutely amazingly. And I think this is sort of where we get a bit to the walking. She'd be quite slow over the course of that year. She would obviously be walking quite slow, with obviously the wheels, with her boots on. And I'd get looks from people, and I could see them seeing me and looking at my dog that's clearly elderly. And you'd think, what they're thinking. And, and I'm very much aware, when I was planning this talk, thinking, oh God, people might think, as I say, I'm strapping my dog into their wheels, that I'm awful. But what people don't see, what my friends would see, because they knew Toffee and they'd be out on walks, but what people wouldn't see is Toffee was walking slowly, yeah, because she was older, but she was also walking slowly because she was sniffing every single blade of grass. She was sniffing every tree trunk. She was walking a little bit quicker when she saw there was a lake up ahead and she could go in and have a paddle. She'd speed up when she saw my hand going to the treat bag. She'd speed up if there was a chance of rolling in some fox poo. People don't see that. What they just saw was the wheels and a clearly elderly dog, but they didn't see all the stuff that actually she was enjoying. And it's the same with these two guys. And it's really funny because Bambi's only 4, but people will think he's elderly. And people will look at Maz and it's like, oh, look at it, and it's like, well, yeah, he's only got 2 legs. But the irony is their lives are actually much better, the fact that they're disabled, because Maz would probably be dead by now on the streets of Afghanistan with no, he's in a home where he's very much loved, has loads of fun, and same with Bambi. And it's, but people don't actually see beyond what's missing or broken. And it's a real bugbear of mine that people don't see what is so capable. And what you do get a lot of, which also drives me up the wall, is people just taking photos without asking for permission. So, I'm always quite an expert at photobombing now, because I hate the fact that people are just taking photos without sort of asking. And someone actually went up to Maz in a stroller once and went, oh my God, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen, a dog in a stroller. And I was like, well, so I'm not the best tempered when it comes to things like that, because these guys are amazing. And they shouldn't just be gawped at like they're some kind of circus exhibit. They're just awesome dogs. And I don't mind it if people ask about them and they want to take a photo, and then they ask if they can take a photo. I'm absolutely like, yeah, thank you for asking. But, there's so much more to them than just these extra bits. Sorry, did I wake you up? I'm sorry. Mummy's having a little snooze. And, trying to be inclusive with all the stuff that we do. And I compete, like I said, I compete in cani-crossing. We go all around the country, and I always choose venues for competitions that are going to be nice for walks. So it might be a beach or it might be some woods. And so all the dogs, we go out for walks, they're all together. And one of the competitions we actually sometimes do is like a night race. So I run it with obviously my cani-cross dogs, but we walk the course with the disabled guys. And it's funny actually just using the word disabled, because I use it very much as a descriptor, because but there's so much, you know, but I don't think it's the best word, but for lack of another word to describe them, but they are the disabled trio, or the boys will be the disabled duo in their bed, but they are certainly not, you know, they are completely handy capable, you know, and I'm very much about, you know, ability, not inability, and there's so much that they can do, and they do. And I've got on my page Mazar dog, Mazar dog, there's some video footage of them both racing down a sand dune, which I did a TikTok video of it, because I was actually filming it, dragging the stroller down, the two boys are racing down the sand dune, and Inka's racing, my blind dog is at the side of me racing behind. Excellent camera footage, I can tell you, from me. But, you know, no reason they can't do stuff. So obviously I would get, you know, people looking, and I'd, you know, get all this, and then obviously, as Toffee got older, she did get more immobile in the house. She, with a lot of dogs, sometimes it's their ability to move. I've got hard floors, so it can be slippy for them. But that wasn't the case. You can put down rugs. That wasn't the case for her. Once Toffee was standing, she could stand. If she stopped standing, she didn't keep moving, she'd sort of, you see her back end come down. But her problem was she couldn't actually get up. So the hard floors are great. If you've got disabled dogs, I recommend hard floors, because carpet's going to give friction burns. I have artificial lawn in the garden, and I often hear a lot of bad stuff about artificial lawns, but I got quite a long grass, and I spoke to the people who made it, and I think it's the longer grass is fine. I think it's the shorter grass that tends to provide the friction on the dogs, because it's very like carpet. Whereas if you've got the longer grass, then, you know, these guys will scoot around in the garden for ages. It can get a bit hot, but not to an extent I've really sort of noticed that much. But yeah, having the hard floors, and then, so even with rugs down, Toffee couldn't get up. So she was in her bed more when I wasn't there, or in between times, as long as I'd lift her up and get her out and get her moving. And what would sometimes happen when I get home from work, I'd find that she'd fallen, or she'd rolled out of her bed as moving around, and she'd be lying on the floor, and, you know, at a bit of a bad angle, and I was like, oh my goodness. So I was like, what can I get? And I didn't want to get one of these beds that's just got these high sides that you can get, these really fancy beds. You've probably all seen them. I'm not going to mention any brands, but she, well, I mean, I could do actually, but they always look, I think, is it Ivy and June? They're always quite fancy, and they look really nice. But if you've got a disabled dog where you might have code brown incidents, completely impractical, because you need something, because no matter how much you drape blankets over it that can be washed, and I think the covers are, but practically I want something super easy. And so I got a high canine bed, got a large one, and what I found on it was that she couldn't roll off it, and she could move around in it, and it meant she wasn't getting any, you know, she never got a pressure sore or anything like that at all, but she could move around in it without falling off. And because of the nature of it, it was super easy to clean. And then I just put she would have blankets on there and towels, and she would have a nappy with bitch pants on as well, because what would happen, I had like a wet dog mat on it. She actually needed, I've done a complete video, 25-minute video on incontinence actually on my Who Paws Wins page, or my Mazar dog page, so do check it out. So I don't want to I could literally spend ages on incontinence. Bambi has to have his bladder emptied for him because he retains urine, which is the issue with a lot of dogs with spinal injuries. Maz is more incontinent, although he does have some control over his bladder as he moves. And I think it's the damage that's been done to his pelvis and his muscles. As he moves, he will pee, or sometimes when he lies down. So I use wet dog mats from Jacob's Den, but it doesn't control, obviously, the poo situation. And dogs do, you know, and dogs love rolling in fox poo, but ultimately when it comes to sort of poo and wee, they do love to be clean. And it was absolutely horrible. You know, if you get home and you find your dog just smeared in poo, it's so distressing for them, and there's just no excuse. So it's all about, for me, it's all about organisation. And so I put bitch pants on, so that would actually catch the poo. And then I'd, you know, obviously it wouldn't be all over her fur, but which, you know, from the washing side of things, she still needed a bath, so I wasn't bothered about it being on her fur. I was just bothered that it was upsetting her. And it's all about, really, just to say, it's all about organisation. So I have a tin bath in the garden with a hot and cold feed, so that if there is a code brown, literally last night before I was about to go to bed, I picked Bambi up to put him up to bed, and I was like, oh, ew. we've had a poo. And so literally, you know, it's really quick. Just put some water in the bath with some warm water in the bath, pop your dog in. I have coconut oil soap, let them soak for a couple of minutes, give them a quick bottom wash, wrap them up in a towel, job's done. It's super simple. And when I finish work at 3 a.m. in the morning, and it was really difficult, you know, sometimes, and so sat, you know, get home and, you know, get and see Toffee, and I'd be like, oh my goodness, she's got to go in the bath, I've got to get the towels in the laundry, the washing machine, or if you're organised and you're prepared for it, then it might happen. It's fine. And you know, I all had nights where I'd get home at 3 in the morning absolutely exhausted after a shift, and I'd get in and I'd go and check, you know, open the door, dog's out, immediately go to Toffee to lift her out into the garden, and just seeing just poo, and it, you know, sometimes it'd come out the bitch pants and things like that, and just feeling so sad. I'm so tired, but I'm so sad because my dog's getting elderly. And you know, but you do get on it. And I think, sorry, it brings us on to the quite a good subject, doesn't it, of sort of euthanasia and that. And so the whole time with all these things, you've got it in your mind is, am I keeping her alive too long? Should I have her put to sleep? And I had, you know, I think it's really important that you have a good friend whose judgment you trust. And I also trusted my vet as well. I've known him since he was out of vet school, actually, and he knew what I was capable of. And, you know, even now, as I was praying for this talk, and I was looking back all over the photos thinking, no, I kept her alive exactly the right amount of time. And I think when it actually comes to making the decision, it's a really easy decision to make, because you just know. And I remember just looking at Toffee, and I mean, literally 2 days before she passed away, she was literally going down into a lake, paddling in her wheels, and I've got a photo of it, most beautiful photo, and it was just like, you know, my goodness. And then literally she just, the next day she was just lethargic, and the next day, and I was just like, you know, it was time. But you do have, I think with all this stuff, you do have times, and there was times during the year after her stroke where she'd have days that she was lethargic, and I think, oh my goodness, is it today? And I'd give it 24 hours and she'd rally, and this was often a thing. And I think, you know, it's like anyone, you know, she was old, she was 14 and a half when she passed away, so she did get tired, and some days she would be really tired and she didn't want to go out. You know, I don't tend to walk the disabled dogs every day. They tend to have a day off in between, and because I've found that's optimal for them, particularly for Maz, because he's also got a shoulder injury, which is again from his original accident. But I find that optimal for them. But obviously that doesn't mean that they don't get any exercise. They mix around in the garden. We do dog training. We do like scent work. They get snuffle mats. They have a whole load of canine enrichment things. And there's no reason that just because a dog's bedbound that they can't do stuff. And so, you know, Toffee had all these different things, and she was very much the centre of attention. So anyone that came around to the house, she was in, you know, she was in the lounge. My house is open plan downstairs, but she was always in the high canine, which was in the most prominent position, so that she always got attention from anyone coming in. If there was anything I was doing and the rest of the dogs were upstairs, Toffee never was, because she was always there and just included in everything. And I think that's really key, is about quality of life, and making sure that you're fulfilling all their needs, which is more than just their physical body. It's mentally, because you can have a dog that's just taken out for walks all the time, but the owner's on the phone, and they're not having all their mental enrichment as well. And it's so important to do all that. And there's so many different things. So we love snuffle mats, we love Kongs, we love the Nina Otterson toys. She would ring a bell to turn a little tap light on, hand targets. There's so many different games you can play that actually don't involve a lot of movement, because it's all stuff, and that's so many things you can adapt that don't need a lot of physical ability as well. I mean, when it was nice weather, I'd take Toffee out into the garden in a high canine, wrap her in blankets so she could sit and do, if I was doing training with the other dogs, so she could watch what was going on. And she was always engaged with stuff. And, you know, this was the thing, even when she was, you know, like a few days before she died, she was round in the river, but she was engaged. We didn't walk as far. We only did a quarter of the walk that we were going to do. We were on my way to my parents' camping, in my camper van, and you know, we only did the quarter of the walk that we'd normally do on the stop off, but she was engaged in it. You know, she was down in it, she couldn't wait to get down in the river, and the lake, and just have a little paddle. And make, you know, that's the quality of life, and it's not just about some of their physical capabilities. And I remember there was I think it was Noel Fitzpatrick on Supervet, it was Noel Fitzpatrick, but he said to someone about their cat, because the cat was incontinent, he said, oh, you have to have the cat put to sleep, there's no quality of life. But that's not the case. You know, I do know disabled cats. You know, I had an elderly cat who was blind, he was incontinent towards the end of his life. You know, it's all about, you know, it was easy to clean up once you're organised. It's all about being organised with these things, and it doesn't have to mean that they don't have a quality of life. You just have to make some adjustments, and you have to be prepared to do stuff. But in many ways, disabled dogs are easier to look after than by others, because I have never had one of my disabled dogs eat the entire contents of my slow cooker, but one of my springers has. So there's loads of things that you can do. And I think the other thing really that I think you've just got to be a bit aware of is actually socializing, because they can be a little bit more fragile. I mean, both Maz and Bambi, because they're from they've been on the streets, they do seem to be very good with socializing with other dogs. It's particularly Maz, and as Toffee got old, Maz certainly turned out to be, you know, he was more of a protector, and he was always around her, in her vicinity, which was I found really interesting, just how he would sort of he'd do that. And I remember when Bambi was first coming, and the rescue were a bit worried because like Rowan's a really big dog, and I said, honestly, don't worry, because Rowan is used to living with a house bunny and a cat who's got blind and epileptic, and you know, and there's no problem. But it is something you need to consider, and this is something, again, out on walks, it's the people with the dogs bounding over, because I don't really want a bouncy lab bounding over near my guys, because, you know, an elderly dog or a disabled dog, they can easily knock them over if they're a bit unsteady. I don't have to worry about, you know, or they can easily sort of hit Maz in the shoulder by accident, which is going to hurt him, and it can, you know, could cause him an injury, which means he can't walk on his front legs for a bit. So you do have to be a little bit vigilant about things. I mean, that said, Maz loves socializing, and he's really active, and he'll run around loads, but it's just being a bit aware. And a lot of the time, you know, I'm sure a load of people, you know, it is a bit of a nightmare sometimes when you're like, oh, excuse me, can you call your dog back? And they're like, oh, is my dog's friendly? And it's like, yeah, I know, but, you know. So it's just having a little bit of an awareness, really, about that. But I think that's pretty much all I've got to say. If anyone's got any questions, do just pop them in the chat, and I will answer them. But, you know, living with disabled dogs, I've got 3. I would have another one without any hesitation at all. They're just amazing. I mean, I've written a blog post, which I've posted in the event actually, about it, because there's so much company. They're just as much fun. I mean, Maz has had a little go at agility as well. We used to go to agility. He'd come along sometimes, and he'd just have a little go without the, because I'd have little private lessons, so he'd have a little go without the jumps, but he'd go through the tunnel and different things. And there's so much you can do. I mean, they love going to the beach. They love running around. Maz is super social. Bambi's super social as well. You know, and there's no reason you can't just include them in what you're doing, and it doesn't have to mean that they get left behind. And I always say, you know, at Canicross competitions, the disabled dogs are the cheerleaders. You know, Mazzy's chief cheerleader, and so they come for the presentations, and so my disabled dogs are probably better known than my actual running dogs. But we all go out for a walk together, and you know, there's ways, and you are really only limited by your imagination in what they can and can't do. And you know, I can't wait till lockdown's over and we can start going on some adventures again and start getting back to the beach, because they're desperate. I know they're desperate to go to the beach because they all love it. And I just love the stroller up the sand dunes, and then, you know, I have to help Bambi up. But the downhill, it's all those guys, and they have an absolutely fantastic time. I think I've covered everything I wanted to say. So I hope I've. But you know your dogs, and with Bambi and Maz, they came to me disabled. With Toffee, it was an evolving process because of her accident, and also that she became elderly. And so sometimes the choice is taken out of you. Sometimes you have to make the choice, and it's the same, you know, if you have to choose to have a dog's leg amputated. But animals handle things so well because they don't have the same social stigma that humans have, which is really, you know, it's just really sad. And you know, and I just think there's more. Broken Biscuits is a fantastic charity who I'm an advocate for, and I do fundraising for them, and it's about sort of stopping the stigma really, and they want to get people out talking in schools about disability, and using these animals are brilliant. And I'd love to have these dogs as pat dogs, but unfortunately because of their incontinence I can't. But it's such a shame, because I just think they're just such a great leveler. And you know, kids, it's great with the kids because they see Maz, they see the fact that he's only got 2 legs, but actually he's just a fun dog. You know, they see Bambi's on wheels and it's no biggie. And it's just, you know, what we need, you know, we need to just normalize it, that it isn't something that people take photos of. And it's not something that if your dog starts to get old but you're still, you know, able to enjoy life, there doesn't have to be that you have to put them to sleep. You know, and don't be put off adopting a disabled dog, because there's so much that fun you can have with them, that, you know, you're not missing out on anything just because your dog's disabled. You're just, they just bring so much to our lives. It's absolutely amazing. They're, you know, such company on walks. It doesn't matter where you want to go or what you want to do. And I mean, Maz and Bambi, we often go out for lunch in their stroller, and when we had all Manchester a few years ago, we had like statues of bees. We went on the bee hunt with the dogs, and they absolutely, because they're both city dogs, they absolutely love being in the city. So they're just like, oh yeah, they absolutely loved, you know, just all the vibe. They literally, Maz is like, you know, sort of John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever with that strutting when he gets the city vibe. So there's just, you know, hope that's answered some questions, and do shout if you've got any, and I will be more than happy to answer. But yeah, if you want to see some of the dogs in action, do check out Mazar Dog, or because I've got videos in there, lots of getting some TikToks and things in there. So take care everyone, stay safe, stay well, bye.